but the concept of rest is underutilized. Let's say that. So where I'm focusing a lot of my time is not necessarily the performance, but what happens leading up to performance. And we can extrapolate this from, marketing campaigns, leadership development, but also like physical fitness. If you think about athletes, like pro athletes or pro musicians, like Justin Bieber or Beyonce or whoever the teeny boppers are listening to these days, or Ronaldo or Messi, like they get paid for a very short period of time. But the reason that they're paid so much for the short period of time is because of their preparation and the ability to bring their experience to life. And I think when I see great leaders or great founders, they're not great because they push really hard, although that just comes with the territory of being an agency founder. You're grinding, you're working long hours, but it's not necessarily how hard they grind, it's how well prepared they are.
Wow.
What I want to focus on is the lag measures, which are much more about skill, which might be like deal size or sales velocity, how long the period is from initial contact to when the sale comes through. And these skills cannot be improved by pushing harder. They can only be improved by preparing better. And so where a lot of my time is spent focusing these days is how can I recover deeper, faster, not only with, my physical aspect. We're training for a half marathon. I even have a running hat on that I just got. But it's really about how can I understand prospects better? How can I understand podcast guests better? How can I do more research and then turn around and apply what's already working in other arenas to our ecosystem? And yeah, a lot of that, like this is my movement to kick off the podcast. Like my movement and the message that I hope comes across to founders, agency owners, is that your value is not in the execution. Your value actually comes from the level of perspective and your depth of perspective when you come in contact of leaders of networks. I was writing a post about this the other day. But yeah, that is that's my main thing, is like, how can I prepare better? My success is not determined on my effort. It is determined by my level of preparation.
I think I love that you touched the fact that a lot of agencies, they start like one, two, or three employees that they work together. They kind of became somewhat friends. They know their strengths and and that's me putting words in your mouth, but based on my experience. So it's actually not on you. Like they think that they can do better than their bosses.
Yeah. Yep.
We're gonna be better if we go on our own.
Uh-huh.
Then, as you said, it's like they are not into operations, they are executors, they're pretty good at that. And then in the beginning, maybe they can call some favors, close some big deals. Depending on the contract that they have, they can actually get one big client that follows them where they are. And then it's a bit of growthing, kind of unplanned startup mode. And one point that I wanted to touch and get your experience is more like, from my point of view, a lot of them, they have control issues. Like, I can do this, I'm the freaking most awesome person doing this. I cannot hire anyone because they are never gonna do my quality. How do you
Mm.
usually handle these?
The book that I got my fiance this year is called Let Them, or The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And it's all about releasing control. Now, I haven't read that, but this was contextual to her because that was something that she was focused on. How this applies to agencies is you can only control, obviously, what's in your purview. You can't control other people. But what you can do is set up systems and processes, obviously, kind of a buzzword, even though it's been around forever and ever and ever. But what does that actually look like? Well, two of the main things are leading and lag indicators. So, lead are effort based indicators. These are like outreach messages sent, new connections made, new conversations opened, demos held, and like in solar or door to door, it was like doors knocked, conversations had. Um, So those are leading indicators, which are effort based, activity based. And then you have lag indicators, which are skill based. These are like, again, deal size, close rate, show rate, from trial to recurring. Like these all are dependent on skill. And my recommendation would be, if you're looking to make a first hire, like understand what your activity looks like in terms of leading indicators, because with enough activity, you can have a feedback loop to develop the lag indicators. But lag indicators are like, skill development can be taught, right? I mean, it's the concept of this podcast. Lag
Hmm.
indicators can be taught. Skill indicators are harder to teach, and they're harder to find. And this one-on-one document is, going back to the preparation. The one-on-one document is formatted in such a way where they are the one leading the meeting. So I'm not leading their one-on-ones. They are required to fill this document out on Friday. I make my notes over the weekend, and then we have all our one-on-ones on Monday morning. And it kind of looks like, I'll just walk through the document if that's cool with you. Like I can just share
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
what
yeah.
it is. Yeah. So we have their main KPIs, key performance indicators. And these can be either leading or lag measures. Usually I like to have these as lag measures because we have a dashboard for lead measures. So, anyway, these are outcomes, KPIs. There's two or three, no more than three. And then we have the main, and then we have resource documents, which is like, where are you tracking? Where are you showing your work? Those are linked. And then we have the agenda of the call. This is where they will put like the bottlenecks, the challenges that they're having, ideas that they have, initiatives that they're running, and they list those out with context. And if they have a challenge, my invitation to them, and what I ask them to do, is to use the 131 framework. I'm not sure where it came from, but I've heard it a couple different times. 131 is clearly define the problem statement that you're trying to solve. Give three options to show that you've thought down different avenues, and then bold or highlight your number one solution. And then that way I can go through and say, okay, let me give some comments on this. I want to build my life in the center, and I want to build my work around it. So I don't want to knock for 12 hours a day. It's Arizona in the summer, like it's 120 degrees out here. I will if I have to, but it's only because if I have to knock that long, it's because I don't have enough skill to yield better results from a smaller amount of input. And what I realized, kind of to, what we were talking about earlier with rest and sleep and recovery and reflection, that is the only way basically where we can get better at increasing the lag metrics. Like, but we have to have enough input data in order to find patterns to then compare to industry best practices, and, to see what's working. So there is a certain amount of imbalance when it comes to starting any new endeavor or new project or whatever. You have to have enough input data to find the patterns, and then you can start to improve. And then the idea is to work less and have higher results. A lot of the times when I see founders struggling, they are struggling financially, but they'll stay in that position for a long time because they're getting paid emotionally from something else. And it's counterintuitive, because when you talk with them, you'll see them be very animated and like, this is so hard. I'm struggling. These things are, these external factors are throwing me off, and I can't seem to figure this out. And like, as you have this conversation with them, you realize they like talking about this. They like being in this position where they are struggling, because in the conversations that they're having with people who are normies, or in solar we call them wages, the people who are earning a like an hourly wage or a salary, like those people will give them a lot of credit, and they'll say, "You're so courageous. I could never do what you're doing. Like that seems so hard. Like, wow, you are such a strong person. You have a way harder work ethic than me." All of this social validation is the emotional payout that keeps them stuck in this cycle, because if they actually figured it out and started to achieve their goals, then you have this concept where, in the wheat field, all the wheat is the same, but if you have one that's taller than all the rest, it gets cut down. And that is a very ostracizing and uncomfortable position to be in, particularly if your friend group are all at a certain level. So I that's what I realize is like the emotional drivers are typically the ones paying the bill on the inside, and it's not necessarily the financial payout. So I had to understand this in solar and say like, okay, let's connect your financial outcomes with an emotional outcome, which is a lot harder to do than you think. But you cannot do that just by pushing harder. In order to dig deep and find those emotional payouts, you have to reflect, be honest with yourself. If you imagine a seed, a cactus seed, and like a redwood tree like that grow in Northern California, if you plant a cactus seed in the Arctic or somewhere tropical, like it won't grow, and it's not because it's a bad seed. It's because it's in the wrong environment. And the same thing with any other seed that requires the correct environment. But a lot of the times we will attribute our success. I think it was like Einstein or something like, don't gauge the success of a fish by how well it can climb a tree. And that's what I see over and over again. And this is what separates like the great founders who are able to stay in it for the long term versus the founders who are struggling and they burn out, is because maybe they're the seed that they are, what they're naturally good at, their talents, their skills, and their desires and interests are being challenged. Like they're creative and they're put in an analytical environment. It's very difficult to stay into that for a long time. Whereas if they made a slight shift and supplemented somebody to supplement their weaknesses, a data person who can share, how the creative output is being perceived through numbers and analytics, then you can, have a longer term, more successful business. I mean, let's be honest, like there are a few use or studies, there are a few cases that we see of people, startup founders who boom, right place, right time, right experience, supply and demand, like they come together at the apex and their business just pops. But it doesn't pop in 3 months. It pops usually behind the scenes after the press release, after the LinkedIn stuff. You see that they've been chipping away at something for 2, 3 years, sometimes a year, but usually it's a couple years. And but you look at like Vision from Mind Valley. Mind Valley is over 20 years old as a company. I think it was founded in 2001. So they're a quarter century old. Why is Mind Valley a nine-figure business? Is not because, it was the most strategic and it has the best products, but it's because the founder was able to sustain the longest. Simon Sinek has that book called The Infinite Game.
You can grow without selling your soul. And I usually, when I say that, selling your soul, I usually say that weirdly enough. I work with that nowadays, but selling your soul in a way that you sell your business just because of money, and then you lose complete control because of that sometimes poor decision, that you had a vision that was awesome, and then someone with a big check comes, they are like, I love your vision, let's do it together, and then like once you're bought, you're out of here, right? So this is kind of like what triggered me, and I wanted you to dig a bit more, like in terms of how you handle this growth of having this kind of willingness to figuring out, like, I'm a founder, I know that I hit my limit, how do I grow here without selling my soul in the sense that I put together? How do you consider selling your soul from your perspective?
I think success is doing more of what you want and less of what you don't want. Like everyone will define success differently, but I mean, I'm pretty certain that if you ask somebody like, I could double your, salary, double your income, triple whatever it takes, uh, but you have to do something that you hate every day for 8 to 12 hours. Would you do it? Probably not. Like I would say most people would say no. It's not worth it for me, right? You see this with uh, particularly, I mean, agency owners are a great example, but you'll see this with like lawyers or people who work on Wall Street, stock markets, whatever, or even strategy consultants at like BCG or Deloitte. They're working extremely long hours, and but they're being paid very handsomely. It's like, great. Maybe if you're in your 20s to like early in your career, like you can do that. You can burn the midnight oil because you don't have a family, you don't have like big obligations, and you understand that I can push for a short period of time, stack the cash, and then, when I exit this period, I'll be much better off. It's a nice thought, but it's very difficult to do because of the emotion that happens when you receive the paycheck. Imagine like you're working 12 plus hour days, and you're not able to enjoy the money that you're earning. And then as soon as you have a break, as soon as you get that paycheck, where does it go? I deserve this. I worked really hard for this. I've been wanting this all the time. All that money goes out the window to make up for the lack of fulfillment that it took in order to earn that money in the first place.
Everyone's, hey, what do you do? Like, where are you from? And then I started testing these with some people. Like, "Hey, but Austin, uh, you come to me, hi, I'm Austin. I'm glad to. And then I say like, who's Austin? They're like, me. I'm like, but who are you? And they're like,
Mm.
what do you mean?
Uh-huh.
I am a podcaster. I'm like, no, 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 no. Then I said, I stopped. I'm like, this is like what you do. It's like I'm asking who you are.
The takeaway for me, if I could sum it up in one sentence, is I am infinite and insignificant. Everything I do, like I can do like I can be whatever I want to be, and my power is absolutely limitless. My opportunity is absolutely limitless, and it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Like whether I achieve my goals in this way or this way, whether I work from home, whether I work 12 hours or 4, like it doesn't matter. All that matters is that I'm doing my best. Like to me, that is success. When somebody asks me, "Who are you?" Like, and I would invite everyone to ask themselves, like, "Who am I really?" Like, without if I was dropped on a deserted island and I didn't have my network, I didn't have my accolades, I didn't have my job description, nothing, right? Who am I? Like, what value do I have? And I asked myself this question during this shamanic experience, I suppose. And what came through to me is it's not who am I, it's when am I Austin? And when I am myself is when I'm doing my best. And if it's when I'm in a scenario where I'm doing something that I hate, I'm not doing my best. And therefore I feel friction internally because I'm like, this is not who I am. When people are in that experience, they're like, man, I'm selling my soul for money. That's not who I am. Why is that? It's because you're not doing your best. But when you're in a creative space and maybe you're not earning the money that you want to be earning, you're like, man, this is me. This is absolutely me. Like that sort of emotional payout is worth more than the reported outcome that you're telling the press. By the press, I mean like your family, friends, social media, whatever. The internal payout is what really matters. So all of that to say, like, if you want to be in business for the long term, it's all about finding where the environment in which your seed will grow the easiest, finding where you can do your best, be your best.
And I think if someone listening to this, they didn't get like all your expertise in there and where you can figure that out. It's like, oh my God, watch it again.
Yeah.
All right. Austin, thank you so much for coming here, giving you all this expertise, your experiences. It was awesome. And I hope we could kind of do this together another
Yeah,
time.
same. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate you, man.